Got it. Hello, Stitches, and welcome to episode 8 of the Ranney Knits podcast. It is Monday afternoon here in the upper left USA. I'm Justine, and this is my podcast all about the things I'm making with my hands and yarn. I don't usually podcast on Monday, but I didn't record on Saturday, which is my usual. I don't know if I can say I have a usual podcast day yet. 8 episodes in, and I've started on Thursdays, did a couple weird ones when I was away. My usual day. I don't have a usual day. I'm unusual. Today I have a couple works in progress to share with you. I don't have any finished objects. I don't have any finished objects this week. I have a little puppy co-host. He's hanging out with me. Archie, you want to say hi? He's been sleeping. We took 2 walks this afternoon. This is Archie. He's my buddy. You're my buddy. I know I woke you up, didn't I? With all that talking. Archie is not my dog. He's hangs out here 2 times a week while his mom's at work. Yes, you're very sweet. Yes, you're very sweet. Okay, you can go back to napping now. Today I am wearing my Quill Cardigan by Evie Scott Designs. The showstopper part of this cardigan is the back detail. I knit this with Cascade 220 non-superwash. I'm not sure what color the way this is. Silver, gray. I did a fairly extensive blog post on this one in the pattern reviews section on my blog, ranneyknits.com. The link will be below if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're watching on ranneyknits.com where I put all my show notes, then you're there already. There you go. You're ahead of the game. Yeah, Quill Cardigan. This may have been a little bit of an ambitious sweater to knit, as the third sweater that I knit? Not only because of the cable detail on the back, which was a little bit challenging because it wasn't repetitive, but wasn't necessarily really difficult. I think the difficult part of this sweater was getting the right fit with the set-in sleeves. And they're not bad. I didn't do a terrible job, but when I wear this, the sleeves tend to puff up a little bit right there and start falling down my shoulders. Just a tiny bit. And I've noticed, I'm wearing it with a t-shirt right now, and I've noticed if I wear it with a long sleeve, because the sleeves are quite fitted, not a lot of positive ease here, and they fit me well, but if I'm wearing them with anything underneath it, the sleeves start not fitting quite the way I would want them to. So the Cascade 220 is a little bit itchy for me. I have really sensitive skin, so if you aren't sensitive to wool, then it wouldn't be a problem, but so that's kind of too bad because, like, although right now, maybe it's just because I've been wearing it when I'm too warm, because right now it's not as itchy as I thought it would be wearing just a t-shirt underneath with no sleeves. All in all, I loved this pattern. I had it in my queue for ages. It came out in February of last year, I think, and I really wanted to knit it, so I found the Cascade 220 on sale somewhere online, and I knew it was time. The pattern as designed is knit with Cascade 220, so good yarn, good pattern. It almost reminds me of the Comfort Fade Cardi by Andrea Mowry, and just because of the garter, I don't know if you can see it very well, but this is all garter stitch here. It's got garter stitch cuffs, and the bottom has a garter stitch detail here. It also has pockets. It's the first time I've knit anything with pockets, so that was pretty cool, interesting. There are better photos and a more comprehensive explanation of my process of knitting this cardigan on my website. I chose to wear this today because I wanted to talk a little bit about this garter hem and knitting it. So I knit this with my Addy, I think these are Addy, yeah, these are Addy Click. These are the short interchangeables, and the garter cuff was knit with the size 4 needles. I think the body was either US 6 or 7, but the cuffs and the collar were knit with size 4. And I struggled knitting this. You do the shawl collar last. Is that what it's called? Shawl collar? I think that's what it's called. Do the collar last, and at that point I was a little bit done knitting this. Just a little bit over it. The back part was the fun part and really exciting, and then I did the sleeves and everything else, and then this is supposed to be 5 inches of garter stitch going all the way around. There are short rows up at the top here by your neck. You do a series of short rows so that you have a little bit more length here than down here, but at the bottom you want 5 inches of garter stitch. And I had just gotten this set of Addy Clicks, I think maybe a month or 2 before I started this sweater, so I was still getting used to them, and that was the first time I knit anything with the size 4s. So I haven't had a problem with these at the join where the needle tip clicks into the cord. But yeah, as soon as I started with the 4s, I was having issues. I originally thought it was just because my gauge was a little too tight to be knitting with a worsted weight on size 4 needles. The join was constantly catching on the yarn, and it was also I was pushing so hard, and because I had so much tension on my needles, that every once in a while the needle would pop out of the cord. That was very frustrating, as you can imagine. I started, oh gosh, I'm just gonna take this off for a second so it'll be easier to show you. Okay, so I started down here with all of this garter stitch. I don't remember how many, that's a lot. That is, let's actually use this wrist ruler. So this part is 5 inches of garter down below. This is the bottom of the cardigan. There's the pockets. Here's, oh, this is how I can show it. I was just gonna put a picture in, but this is the back detail of the cardigan. This is where the name Quill comes from. It's got, how cool is that? So I wore this to Vogue Knitting Live, and I was doing that thing where, you know, like you get really psyched. You're like, oh man, everybody's gonna think this is so cool, and like they're gonna be like, "Whoa, look at that sweater! That's amazing!" But nobody said anything, and I think, I mean, that's fine. I don't I don't expect everybody to be really excited about my sweater, but when you're at a knitting event, like maybe a little bit of excitement. But also, it's on the back, so when they were seeing the cool part of the sweater, they were looking at my back, and so it's kind of hard to be like, "Excuse me, let me please be really enthusiastic." I mean, like maybe they were looking at it, but couldn't see them. Anyways, I was talking about this section of garter stitch knit on my size 4 Addy Click needles. Yeah, so I did this part and I was super frustrated. I mean, my needles were popping off the whole time, and I was getting really upset with it. Then did the back sleeves, moved on to this shawl collar, moving back to the size 4 needles, and the point that I'm trying to tell you is I did not make this 5 inches on this shawl collar. I measured it recently, and it's about 4.5, maybe if that. Might be more like 4. I might have quit when I still had about an inch to go. And that's something that is now very noticeable to me. So when I'm wearing it, you can see it kind of folds over here, and then there's this garter that's exposed on this side. And I think from what I can see in the photos, I think it's supposed to fit more like this, so it wraps around just a little bit. So a couple fit issues, and that's more on me and just my inexperience rather than the pattern. The pattern is great. It was really easy to follow, and I'm kind of surprised that there aren't more of these on Ravelry. I think last time I checked there were about 100 project pages on Ravelry, and that just, for something like this, that just doesn't seem like enough to me, you know? Like, I don't know. I guess that's just the way patterns on Ravelry go. Sometimes you just get lucky and post it at the right time or something. I don't know. But anyways, so I am planning on eventually going back and knitting that extra inch, maybe adding another inch to this shawl collar on different needles, on non-interchangeables. So despite the issues that I've had with the size 4 needles in this set, I still really like it. The other needles, I think I've used all of them except for the 11s. It goes from 4 to 11. And the other ones don't have that issue that the 4s do. I think what happens is the 4s are just a little bit smaller, so they don't sit flush with the cord and the little connector bit on the cord. I'm guessing that's what happens, because when I knit with the 5s and up, I don't have that issue. So eventually I will knit that and finish it up. On the subject of those size 4s, my most worked on this week work in progress is knit on size 4 needles. So like I said, originally I thought that it was because I was using a worsted weight on those size 4 needles, and that's why I was getting that catch and having all that trouble. But last week, as promised, I started my modern sailor sweater, and this is by Marie-Christine Levesque, and the pattern is offered in French and English. I think most of the project pages on Ravelry are in French, so I was a tiny bit nervous when I bought this that it wouldn't be in English. It is in English. I don't speak French. But this is knit with fingering weight on size 4, and I started with the Addy clicks because I thought maybe fingering weight I wouldn't have that issue. Still getting that catch at the join with the fingering weight. It wasn't my tension on the worsted weight. It is any weight yarn, you're going to have that issue, or at least I had that issue. Maybe it's a defect in my set, but I have a feeling that that's just the size 4s are just not great. So I started knitting this. I was knitting flat. You start knitting flat on this back from top to about here, and I realized very quickly that I wasn't going to be able to continue on. So I did buy a set of size 4 fixed needles, and these have a 32-inch cord. And these are also Addies. I like the cord on Addies, I guess, is why I have so many of them. I know, I guess that's the only reason. I like the Chow-Goos. I haven't tried the Hiya Sharps yet. But, yeah, since I started this and I swatched with this, with those interchangeable Addies, I just thought I should probably stick to the same brand. So, and that's what most of the local yarn stores that I've been to, most of them either only carry Addies or mostly carry, like, they have Addies in like clover bamboos or something. The only ones I can find in person are the Addies. So anyways, have I talked about needles enough today? Let's talk about this sweater, you guys. I am obsessed with this. It doesn't look like a whole lot of progress right now, but it's fingering weight. Like, come on, give me a break. This is my first fingering weight sweater, and I love it. These stripes are a mini skein set from Wonderland Yarns. I just looked them up. They're also known as Frabulous Fibers, I think. That's their handle on Instagram. But yeah, gradient set of mini skeins was one of the best purchases I've made. I bought them on a whim. I've mentioned before that one of my local yarn stores was closing in November, December, and they had that mini skein set there when I went to the first day of their going out of business sale, and it was insane, and people were just grabbing yarn like crazy. And of course I got overwhelmed and didn't know what to do, but I saw this set of mini skeins and I was like, yes, I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but I need it in my life. And I'm super happy with how these stripes are working up. This is, the main color is Knit Picks Capretta. All of my yarns that I'm using are 80-10-10 Superwash Merino Cashmere Nylon. MCN. I didn't know what MCN, people kept referring to it, and I was like, what's MCN? And then I got my hands on some Merino Cashmere Nylon, and I was like, gotcha. There's all kinds of little terms and things that, I mean, like foes and hoes and all kinds of stuff that, like, it seems like everyone's always coming up with all these terms, and it's a lot to keep up with. So if you don't know, if I use a term and you don't know what it is, like, don't feel bad for not knowing. Never feel bad for not knowing knitting terms. Like, it's enough alone, just like, you know, it's like when you first look at a pattern and it looks like it's in ancient Egyptian or something, like, it's like, what are these terms? What are these symbols? Like a chart, a knitting chart. And the first time I looked at that, I was like, no way am I ever going to be able to figure out what any of that means. It's all a learning process. Anyway, Modern Sailor in English. I attempted the French French version, the original French pattern name last week, but I'm gonna call it the Modern Sailor for now because I'm an American. Have you guys been watching the Olympics? Pretty much, I feel like from this row to this row, I was watching the first night of figure skating. I'm more of a skiing, snowboarding watcher, but the figure skating makes me so nervous when I'm watching them that I just like furiously like staring at the TV, knitting my fingers off because there's just like so much nervous energy, and that has probably affected my tension. But anyways, thanks Olympics for helping me make progress on my sweater. That is that. Both of the projects I have today are living in project bags that I made myself. The only 2 project bags that I've made myself, but that's kind of cool. I mentioned this one on a previous episode, and this one, that I want to make more of these. I have all the fabric, but just gotta sew. Just gotta do the sewing. These are my Yin Yang kitty socks. Pattern is free on Ravelry. It is by Gina Garcia, and I opted to do a duplicate stitch for the little faces. You put faces down here. I think last time I mentioned that I'm planning on not doing the kitties' faces. I want to do something else. I was originally planning on doing little puppy faces, but I was playing around with Stitch Fiddle, and that's just the online colorwork pattern generator. Well, I think you can do like lace or cable patterns as well, but I use it to do my colorwork patterns when I'm just making them up. And I was playing around with it, and I couldn't quite get a dog-looking face on there, so I'm gonna try something else. But I'm gonna finish knitting these first before I start on the duplicate stitch. I made a hat this week too, and I had words on it. I had words on the hat going across the top, and the last time I made those hats, I think I showed them on my first episode of the podcast, but the last time I made those hats, I just did like an intarsia. I don't know if I've ever said that word out loud. Intarsia? Interesting. That's what's funny about podcasting, is some things like I don't talk about with people out loud, because I don't talk about knitting with a whole lot of people in real life, so I'm used to just typing it, but anyways, do you get that? Does that happen to you? Or are you just fabulous social butterflies who go to knit nights and stuff like that and talk about knitting with your friends all the time? Let me know. Yeah, but what was I saying? Oh, I was talking about my hat. Yeah, so the last time I did the knitting it, I incorporated the color work as I was knitting it. This time I decided, it'll be so much easier to do duplicate stitch. Instead, it was not easier. It took forever. That was lame. I'm not doing that again. But the hat turned out fine. It was just a lot more work than I was expecting. So yeah, I haven't made a whole lot of progress on these since the last time I showed them. I was on the ferry yesterday, and I had about 2 hours to work on them. Probably not full 2 hours, but you know. Yeah, somebody said, oh wow, that's really impressive that you're knitting with black yarn in wintertime when it's dark and hard to see. And I was like, yeah, I mean, there's no pattern on it, but still, like, not the best decision to knit with black yarn in February. It's not that bad. It's sunny today. It's chilly for Seattle. It's about 45, but It's really nice and sunny, and it was really sunny yesterday. And that was our local weather update. I'm Justine Ranney, your local weather girl. Right? I miss my calling. How? There's a bunch of us Ranneys, and I don't know of anybody that I'm related to anyway that is a weather person. With a name like Ranney, there ought to be at least one weather person in our family. I'm just saying. I should have done it. I'm bad at science. I could probably just read the weather. If they would just let me do that, I could just end over here. But I'm pretty sure you have to actually understand fronts and weather systems. And I can get excited about it. I can get really excited talking about what's going to happen and checking the weather, and ooh, there's a thunderstorm coming up next Tuesday. That's exciting. There's not, but I'm just, that, for example, like, that's, I could have done it. I could have been a weatherman. Oh, well, that's all my whips. So yesterday, like I mentioned, I took the ferry over to Bremerton, and I met up with my niece and my sister-in-law, and we went Goodwilling. I hesitate to call her my sister-in-law. My brothers, I've got two half-brothers, and they're both a little bit older than me, just a tiny bit. But they have kids who are my age, so my nephew is a year younger than me, and my niece is 3 years younger than me, so I might mention them, and I'm not talking about, like, 8-year-olds or 4-year-olds. Like, they're my age. We're more like cousins, but they like to call me Auntie Justine anyway, because they think it's funny. Yeah, it's funny, but it's kind of like, it's one of those things that, like, people look at me weird, like they're trying to figure out, like, how, okay, if that's that girl's aunt, like, how old is that lady? Like, she doesn't look like she's in her 40s, but she would have to be to have a 20-something-year-old niece. Anyways, tangent. Anyways, my niece is a camera woman, and she goes on all kinds of adventures all around the world, and most recently she was filming penguins in the South Georgia Islands. Anyways, she spent some time on the Falkland Islands and found this yarn from the Falkland Islands. This is Falklands yarn from the Harborview gift shop. It is chunky wool, and it is so cool. I'm gonna take this tag off. Like, how pretty is that? It's coming across on camera as a little bit more muted. It's a little bit more vibrant than what you see, but excuse me? What? There's two of these colors with the blues and greens and yellows, and then she got me one. I love this one so much. This is so special. This colorway is Sea to Sky, and this one is Gypsy Cove. And how sweet is that? This is chunky weight yarn. Each skein is approximately 50 meters, 50 grams, and I love it so much. It's really woolly. it's not, it doesn't say what kind of yarn it is anywhere, but it Aint Superwash. And I love it. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. It was so unexpected. I was just like, what can I do with it? I was kind of browsing Ravelry a little bit last night, and I think these would make some really pretty mittens, or something. I don't know if they would be fingerless or not. This one, maybe a hat? I have a lot of hats in this color. A lot. I have 2 hats, or maybe 3 hats in this color. And it might be like a bulky or an Aran. I'm not really sure which I would call this, but I don't work with this weight very often, so it's kind of exciting, but also a little bit scary, because I want to do something really special with this, but I don't know what that's going to be. So if you have any suggestions, if you have a favorite chunky or bulky weight yarn pattern that you'd like to recommend, please let me know, because I can't wait to use this, but I want it to be special. I think these would make really pretty mitts. Or a cowl. The only reason, so that's what, this little tag has a little pattern for a chunky wool neck warmer. So, and that uses 2 to 3 80-gram balls of Falkland wool. So the pattern is there. I could make a cowl out of these 2, but that might work. I might be turning a new leaf here, because I've been wearing this sweater. I haven't taken this sweater off yet, and I kind of thought I would have, because I wasn't wearing anything underneath it, and I thought my arms would be very itchy at this point, but they're not. Maybe I've been wearing wool enough, and without realizing it, my skin has grown accustomed to it. So I think my favorite thing to do with I would love to have a cowl out of this, but I'd love to have mittens. Here I go. Dilemmas. Yeah. I just want to look at it. It's just been sitting on my table in here. It's so pretty. So good. So I am so incredibly thankful for her for thinking about me and bringing this back all the way from the other end of the world. That is truly, truly special. And that's why I'm showing it. But Justine, you said you weren't going to do stash acquisitions. But I did, because I am the ruler of this little kingdom that is the Ranney Knits podcast. This is my corner of the universe. You get it. You know why I had to show this, and it's just really, really special. It smells like Falkland sheep. Now I know what they smell like. Thank you guys so much for watching and putting up with all my nonsense every time I put out a podcast. I really appreciate you subscribing. I appreciate all the comments, and I appreciate all the likes, the thumbs up. Those make my day. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I have a Ravelry group for this podcast. It is the Ranney Knits podcast, and yeah, go over there, check it out, join us. I have an idea for a knit along, you guys. I will probably talk about it more next time. I'm not going to start it until probably March, but be on the lookout. If you'd like, go join the Ravelry group so you can be all set to join in on our knit along, starting hopefully next month. You can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Ranney Knits, and check out my website, RanneyKnits.com. Wrap it up, Ranney. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you again next time. Bye.